So, for those of you who don't know, I'm Glen Poole. I'm CEO of the Australian Men's Health Forum, and I'll be your host today. I'd like to start first by acknowledging that we're meeting today from the lands of Aboriginal peoples around Australia. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend my respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. I'm joining you from a place up in central Queensland, where we're on the land of the Malay, the Garang, the Gureng, and the Tarabalang Bunda people. So, as we're having a conversation about suicide, and particularly men's suicide prevention today, or speaking certainly in that context, I also want to acknowledge that a lot of people here today will have lived and living experience of suicide themselves, either through their own personal experience or the experience of friends and family. And I really welcome your wisdom and your insights, and wish to acknowledge all those we've lost to suicide. And a little reminder before we start, I'm sure you'll be very familiar with this, most of you, but it's always worth saying that if you do require any support as a result of this conversation, these conversations can be difficult, and different things can set us off at different times. I mean, we don't always expect it. So if you do require any support during this webinar, Jonathan Bedlow is an excellent suicide assist trained support worker, and you can also, of course, call organisations like Lifeline on 131114. So Jonathan's here in the room with us, so just please reach out if you need any support. So to the webinar. Well, welcome to Doing It Tough's first webinar. For those who don't know, Doing It Tough is a New South Wales focused website funded from New South Wales Health and developed and run by Suicide Prevention Australia in partnership with the Australian Men's Health Forum. Today we're going to discuss what works when supporting men. Our way into that conversation is exploring the experiences of some great projects who we consider to be, in different ways, best practice projects, who generally take a more non-clinical way to supporting the men that they work with. But we want to bring together those speakers with people from, say, frontline services, more mainstream services, to share experience and learn from each other. So there's going to be an opportunity when we've heard from our speakers in a roundtable discussion. There's going to be lots of opportunity for you to contribute and participate in different ways too. So please, we're not inviting you as a passive recipient of information. We're inviting you to a conversation. The whole sort of Doing It Tough philosophy is that we're trying to connect men in New South Wales who are looking for support around broader issues that impact mental health and well-being and increased risk of suicide. Things like addiction and relationship issues, financial problems, abuse, work challenges, and of course mental health challenges. And we have over 150 local groups and community organisations listed on the Doing It Tough website, which wouldn't be possible, I'll say once again, except for the funding of New South Wales Health. A few of us have been working on this project for several years now, along with myself. You've already seen, if you got here early, Claire Kinsella, who's Director of Communications and Advocacy at Suicide Prevention Australia, Georgina Beasley, who's the Comms Manager at Suicide Prevention Australia, and Jonathan Bedlow, who wears many hats, including doing work for the Australian Men's Health Forum. And it's been an absolute honour and privilege to work with this team on this website over the last 3 or 4 years. We've learned so much and continue to learn, and want to create opportunities to share our learnings with the wider community. So we've already mentioned the chat. It seems to be working, so please use that throughout the webinar if you want to contribute. If you have questions, there's a Q&A session at the end, so if you think of questions throughout the webinar, just pop them into the chat and one of us will sort of gather up those questions and make sure that we're able to ask a few of them. Yeah, so that's pretty much the intro. So let's move into the actual contents of the webinar, and to kick things off, we're going to have a round table discussion with 3 fantastic guests who we've invited here today. We've got Tim Hewson, who's the founder of Mongrels Men. We've got Brad Parker, who is the CEO of Mates in New South Wales, and we've got Bruno Efoti, who's the founder of Tradies Insight, a grassroots organisation in Dubbo. I've been aware of these guys for many years because of the work they do. So I'll maybe give a bit of a personal intro when we come to each of them. But I'm actually going to ask them to tell you about who they are and what their organisation does, because they'll do it a lot better than me. I think we'll start. So I'll give our speakers a bit of pre-warning. We'll start with Brad, then we'll come to Tim, and then we'll come to Bruno. But I also want to share a resource that we have at the Australian Men's Health Forum, which was the starting point for this conversation. So Claire, do we have that slide available? Yeah, great. So one of the resources we've built, let me explain the Australian Men's Health Forum briefly. So we're a peak body which connects individuals and organisations that work in different ways to improve the lives and health of men and boys. So we don't just focus on male suicide or indeed mental health. We focus on a broad range of health and social issues that impact men and boys. And one of the things that connects our members is that they're all really good at working with men. They've got lots of experience. And there's often a story out in more mainstream health services and mental health services that men are a hard to reach population, or they're hard to engage with. And that certainly can be the very real experience of a lot of health systems and health workers. Yet our members seem to be able to engage and work with and attract men in high volume. And often their challenge is how do we keep providing services for this broad range of men? I don't know if you're hearing that. I'm just getting a bit of feedback, so I was pausing there for a second. I apologise. So one of the resources we produced a couple of years ago was it's a resource about how to develop male-friendly services, and this applies to any kind of health or social service that's trying to reach more men. And what we did was try to synthesise what were some of the common characteristics of these great projects that were really good at engaging with men. And we broke it down to 3 areas. It was how they promoted their service to men. It was the culture within their organisation and in their services, and it's the way that they structured their services. So today we're going to structure the conversation around those sort of 3 areas. So we're going to start talking about sort of promotion, and some of the key things that we've observed over the years is that successful groups that work with men, they generally promote themselves directly to men. They often meet men where they are rather than waiting for men to come to them, and they often use language which is user-friendly. We call that male-friendly language, but it can mean many different things. It can be language that's appropriate to rural men, or language that's appropriate to men in construction. It changes from group to group and context to context. But enough of me. That will be our starting point. But I'm not going to ask these 3 guys to tell us what advertising they do and promotion they do, because you'll soon find that this idea of promoting to men is actually deeply embedded in the way they do work, including right down to the very name of their organisations. So I'm going to come to Brad Parker first. Brad's CEO of Mates in New South Wales. I first came across Mates about 15 years ago at a men's health conference, and I was blown away. It's a work of art, the way the Mates model works. And then over the years, I've met I've only ever met fantastic blokes working for mates and women too, and we've engaged with Brad a few times over the years, and his passion and his commitment to the work he does is astounding, and I'm really pleased that we've got him here today. Brad, so my first question is really simple. Can you just explain how Mates works to us, and as you do, can you also tell us why is it called Mates? Why is it called Mates?
Yeah, good point, Glenn. G'day, Glenn. G'day, everyone. So the Mates in Construction program initially started in the construction industry. We now have Mates in Mining, Mates in Energy, and we've just completed a pilot for Mates in Manufacturing. But I guess the success of the Mates program is two things. One, that we get access to people, and I think that's important about getting access within the workplace. But also because we're a holistic program, so it's training and support. One without the other would be insufficient. Actually, training people without support could be dangerous. We have a 24/7 helpline. We have a really good case management system. We're evidence-based, so the research informs us about, how we should be approaching things and evaluating the program on an ongoing basis. And we're acknowledged just recently by the World Health Organization as being an example of world's best practice within the workplace. So we know that the way the program operates is that obviously we're talking about men here, and a very male-dominated industry construction is. As a matter of fact, I often say that the feminists within the industry love me, because I often say, as we all know, I think collectively, that, and we're not generalising here, that male suicide on an average about 75% compared to female suicides. We know that females, there's some direct evidence, females are much better at help offering and help seeking. So why is there any better excuse than to have a higher participation level of females within our industry? That is that they can actually assist in helping save lives. So that's I'm going to say we never forget the women in our industry as well, but we obviously, the whole Mates program has been pushed towards males, obviously being male dominated. The term Mates in itself, so Mates comes out of mateship. That is this thing about mateship and calling everybody mates, is it real intangible, or is it just a cheesy throwaway thing? Well, it's actually real intangible. I think we know that, by being a good mate, lots of people are good mates within our industry, workmates, work colleagues. But by being a good mate, you can go that one step further. And we ask you to, get involved in some life-saving interventions. And we encourage that. And that's what the Mates program serves to do. But I'll leave it. I won't hog the whole thing.
No, that's perfect, Brad. We'll be coming back to you. But very clearly you can see. So just to clarify, you don't exclusively work with men, but 85-90% would be male.
Oh yes, absolutely. We're getting more females within the professional sort of ranks. Not so we're not faring so well in the trades, but yeah, absolutely. It'd be as high as that.
Yeah. So you've got some really clear examples there of how Mates promotes to men. It's getting out there and meeting men literally where they are in male-dominated workplaces, and often the workers like Brad, right down to caseworkers up to sort of CEO, often have a background in trades and building. What do you turn your hand to, Brad, if we need any handiwork?
I'm useless, Glenn. Let me tell you, absolutely. Yeah, I'm an old builder's labourer. As a matter of fact, when I go to Bunnings, and I'm probably wearing one of the Bunnings tops, the gentleman will come up to me and say, can I help you there, sir? And the very tough Croatian woman who I'm married to, who we lovingly refer to as a general, turns to him and says, don't talk to him. He's absolutely useless. You need to talk to me. There you go.
Yeah. But the important thing is, this is about promotion. You look like a bloke who knows his way around a spanner.
Well, yeah, I feel people, Glenn.
Yeah, got it. So we'll come on to Tim now, and it's been a real pleasure to watch Tim's organisation grow and expand over the last few years. I've actually hung out with one of the Mongrels men's group. Last time I was down in the northern beaches of Sydney, I just surprised him and appeared on his morning walk, and was welcomed just as every man who shows up to a Mongrels men event does, and it was a fantastic experience. So, same question to you, Tim. Why Mongrels men, and can you explain what Mongrels men does?
Yeah, so Mongrels Men as a charity is about 2.5 years old. We've been operating on the northern beaches of Sydney since 2019. But to be fair, I've been building communities of men around activities and events probably since about 2008. But I really only kind of turned the blowtorch to it in 2019. So as a kind of startup charity, we're focused on improving men's mental health and wellbeing. We fundamentally operate on 4 pillars: conversation, connection, community and movement. And movement has to be part of the activities that we undertake. We've got 3 core programs. The first is our community-based meetups run by our champions, and they basically just organise events and activities, opportunities for men to get together, to connect and communicate and form new social and support networks with other men in their local community. We also run what we call doghouse events, which are opportunities for men to kind of get informed and educated about everything from gut health to the importance of sleep to the importance of exercise, how to prevent burnout, and then we back that up with mental health response workshops, which we look to roll out to all of our communities. So that's kind of the who we are and what we do. Glenn, you mentioned the growth for us. It was only a few years ago, it was me and another bloke running up and down DY Beach. We're now 16 volunteers, 13 locations in New South Wales and Queensland, and run more than 800 events and programs for men each year. So yeah, it wouldn't be what it is without the backbone of the volunteers that do the hard work for us. In terms of Mongrels, I mean, the reason for the name came about because we needed a name to put on a trophy for a golf day, because blokes are inherently competitive, many years ago. But today it's much more about concepts like the strength in the pack, so obviously the support from community, the inner fight within the dog, resilience, and we talk about the kind of inner mongrel, right? Bringing out the inner mongrel, that resilience and toughness to overcome challenges. You're on mute, Glenn. Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Fantastic, thanks, Tim. So as you're listening to this and you're learning about these community-led organisations that are really great engaging with men, you may be thinking already, well, this is really interesting, but we can't go into building sites, we can't run golf days. And I suppose today's not about saying, because these guys do it exactly this way, that's exactly how you have to do things to reach men. It's thinking about what lessons can we take from this that we could apply in our services. So I really encourage you to be thinking about what inspires you, and where do you think you could tweak, change, improve, develop your approach from what you're hearing being shared today. From our 3 great guests, only 2 of whom we've met so far. So it's now time to bring in our 3rd excellent guest, who's Bruno from Tradies Insight in Dubbo, a fantastic grassroots organisation. Have been following Bruno for a couple of years with excitement on social media. Have not yet been able to get out to Dubbo and attend one of his events in person, but I'm very much looking forward to doing that next time I'm passing through Dubbo, which doesn't happen very often. So Bruno, welcome. Thanks for being here. And sort of same question to you. Why you call Tradies Insight, and then can you just give us a bit of an understanding of what it is you do and how you engage with the tradies in your community? Is Bruno with us? I'm not seeing him on the screen.
He would. He was.
Yeah.
He has been having some tech issues, I think, connecting, but we thought he was here. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if he's not with us right now, we're going to have to bounce back to Brad and Tim. But if you could work to get him in, get him back on, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Sorry for that. Hopefully we can get Bruno back into the conversation. It gives us a little bit more time with Tim and Brad coming back to you sooner than I expected them. So we're going to so that was thinking about promotion. As you can see, in a way, Tim and Brad are already promoting to men in a really effective way because they've gone where men are, and you know they're doing very male focused things. They're in construction sites, or they're doing golf days and social soccer. They're already set up in a way that's bound to reach men. But it's not just about that. I mean, you could do fantastic sort of promotion campaign, for example, specifically targeting men in your community, your male patients, your male consumers. But when they walk through the door or pick up the phone, you also want to make sure that first point of contact really works. We want to think about how we engage with men and how we retain them. So we talk a lot about the culture of the services and the groups that people provide, and we find that there's often within men's groups that work really well at engaging men. There's an element of social connection and peer support, not just one-to-one. There's often an opportunity to reciprocate, to help each other. So not just to receive help, but to actually be able to give help to others as well. And in the literature, that's really important. It's one of the enabling factors that can enable men to be more likely to seek help if they feel that they're able to help others in the process. And also, there's a tendency that they don't tend to, think of men as a problem, to problematize men, pathologize men. They focus more on men's strengths and what works about men. So to get us thinking about that, about the culture of the service we provide and how we can make it more appealing to men, the question I want to ask that sort of covers all of that is quite simply, I'll come to you, Brad, is why does what you do work for men?
Okay,
what makes it male friendly? No.
Yeah. Well, look, I think the big thing is, right, we get access, but we also say to them, you spend more time with your workmates than you do with your loved ones, family or friends. So we think that you're best placed to pick up there might be some problems. And then obviously training them through the process of what to look for and then what to do about it and how do you keep someone safe while connecting them to support. So I often say that suicide and mental health can be complex, but they may not be so complex to fix. The most important commodity we have in our industry is our people, and maybe the answer actually lies within the people. So if we're training people to have a look for what to look for, and then taking that next step further by doing, the connector training, which is a 4-hour training, which is, about how you actually, a deeper conversation, how you actually keep someone safe while connecting them on. And then, of course, the gold standard is the assist after that. And then they're all volunteering for this, by the way. They're not voluntold. They're volunteering to do this training, and they're supported by their employers, because employers within the industry, they look at it. There's so much more to the Mates program. It's not just about mental health and suicide prevention. We know with safety in the construction industry, around plant and equipment, heavy plant and equipment, it can be a dangerous place to work. And if your mind's not on the job, you're not only a risk to yourself, but everybody else working around you. So it plays an important role within safety. But the morale aspect, around morale, better productivity, there's so much more that goes on within the Mates program when we're training them on site. So connecting them we're already utilising the relationships that they have with each other, right? We're building on those relationships and then giving them a bit of a toolbox about how to deal with some life skills and how you take it further.
Great, thanks, Brad. And same thought to you, Tim. What what is it that you're doing that works for men? What you're doing that means that we could define what you're doing as male friendly?
Yeah, there's probably a couple of things that contribute to the culture of what we call mongrels men or the pack. They just kind of call themselves affectionately the mongrels. The first thing we do is try and take all of the hurdles away to make us as accessible as possible. So think, being always on, accessible, consistent, running events and activities, rain, hail and shine, there's always going to be somebody there. It's at no cost, there's no membership. Mongrels will even pay for the coffee, and we think that's a small price to pay after an activity to get a couple of guys talking. I mentioned activities, it's important. Movement's one of our pillars. We are always making sure that there is something movement-based because of the connection between movement or exercise and mental health. I'm a bloke, I can say this, we are men, we like things to be kept simple. So, we meet, we move, and then we chat over coffee. And it really is as simple as that, and we don't force conversations. We let conversations come about naturally, and we encourage what we'd call meaningful conversations casually, and that comes about through frequency of attendance, it comes about through developing trust, by rapport, and then those conversations tend to open up because of those factors, but also because a lot of our activities are shoulder to shoulder. It's a walk or a run or something of that nature, which is non-threatening for men. So we just try and create, I'm going to say, a safe and flexible infrastructure to be able for men to be able to talk and open up. And we kind of keep it casual and friendly, because we're not just trying to tackle the mental health challenge and reduce the male suicide rate. We're also trying to tackle things like isolation and loneliness through connection. So, the more casual we keep it, the more open and warm and friendly, and the more we can allow guys to connect. And most importantly, we always start and finish with a hug, which means that, you kind of get the immediate benefit of the oxytocin love drug hit. And for some guys, that's incredibly confronting, but it's also a nice way to start and finish a meet-up and an activity.
Yeah, great. Thanks, thanks, Tim. I'm trying to remember if I got a hug last time I was with you. Whether that's a new addition. I think we probably hug anyway, don't we?
Yeah, you'll get one. You'll definitely get one.
Yeah. Are you telling me about the guy who used to be a boxer?
So we had.
If you want
guys
to share
respond very differently to physical touch, especially with other blokes, depending upon who they are in the background. Some of them aren't used to it. And we had a guy come along to one of our meetups one day, and he's a boxer. He boxes and trains a few days out of the week, and probably at the kind of upper end of the demographics that we would work with. So let's just say he's 65 plus. And his first response when somebody went in for a hug was, like full, step back and what's going on here, don't touch me. And then he kind of realised what was happening. I'll leave the profanities out for the benefit of the audience, but it was quite a confronting but humorous way for him to realise that it's okay for blokes to maybe have a cuddle to start and say good day to one another. He now cuddles everybody every time he turns up.
Yeah, right. Lovely. And but speaking to you, Brad, you were talking about some of the ways you sort of have those conversations about suicide with men, the sharing of sort of like, stories they can relate to, the way you make mental health conversations. Do you want to share some of that with us?
Yeah. So we thread stories that we've heard within the industry, or our personal sort of stories, although we try not to trigger people. But it might be, when we're talking about looking for some of those signs, things that a change in a person. So it's often about loss. So we talk about the loss of a loved one, loss of family or friend, loss of a good mate. And I think one of the ones I share, and can be triggering for me, this one, but there was a young bloke that we trained up on the Central Coast who came to us after the general awareness training and said, I lost Dad. We were really close. Dad passed away, natural causes, but passed away. But we had this day that we'd celebrate together. It was the NRL grand final. It was our day. He said, Dad's gone, and the NRL grand final comes around. He's home alone. Next minute, he gets a tap on the door. He opens the door. He's got 10 of his mates. They've got the slab of beer on the shoulder. They've got sausages for the barbie. They said, come on, Buffett, we're here to celebrate. They knew that day was tough for him, right? So they decided to share in his grief. And it might be, you know, like changes in someone distant. You might talk about the construction worker who played cards in the crib room, the lunch shed every lunchtime, and then removed himself, went and had lunch in the car. After the third day, he suicides. Everybody on site said, well, we didn't know that meant suicide. Maybe on reflection, we should have tapped on that car window and said, mate, what's going on with you? You know, and then we talk about what's cryptic and hidden, and, you know, even the best of the mental health professionals can miss the signs. They don't do the woulda, coulda, shoulda, or the what ifs, all that sort of stuff. But we're always putting a blend of, you know, real stories that they can relate to within the industry that we've picked up along the way. And of course, we have, you know, people from industry like the likes of, you know, Mark and Andrew are both chippies. You know, I think Uma, who's Irish, young woman who worked in traffic control. So, you know, we've got a blend of people that come from the industry, and we're always trying to speak at their level, so they can best relate, you know, to what we're doing.
Great, thanks, Brad. And news hot in from the sidelines. I think we've got Bruno in the room. So I just want to check, Bruno, you're there, and you can say good day if you are, so I can see you.
Yeah, I'm here finally. I'm sorry.
No need to apologise.
Hey,
there he is. There's his beautiful face. So Bruno, if you don't mind me just throwing a couple of questions straight at you, as we're deep into the conversation, we haven't, you know, we want to catch up with you too. Just give us a couple of minutes first, just to let people know who you are, and the question is, firstly, why are you called Tradies Insight? What's the reason behind that? And then just give us a little flavour of some of the activity you do, and take a couple of minutes to do that, please.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Bruno Efoti. So originally from Tonga, and I came to Australia around about 30 years ago, and I did an apprenticeship here in Dubbo. And yeah, so I was working as a carpenter for about 20 years. I was also running a business for about 15. So I was very well embedded into the culture of you know, trade industry, and just learning about the culture and how to I guess insert myself into that culture, and you know, be the best carpenter that you can be, you know, and providing for your family in that. But I think from very first up, as I came to Australia when I was 21. So I grew up in Tonga, and there was one thing very quickly that I noticed with the Aussie blokes, that over home we were able to talk about things very openly, especially the hard things. And because I came from a very small community, the village is only about 200 people. So over there, you can imagine, we all know each other, we all work with each other and support each other. So helping is just another thing that we do. And people are very open, you know, especially blokes. You know, they tell you when things aren't going that well, and we all rally around them, you know, and it's not a hard thing to kind of do. We just know, we look over the neighbours and they're doing something, building something over there, and we just go up there to help. So that was what I grew up on. It was just community working together. And then I found myself on a work site. Then I saw how the struggle that the Aussie blokes were going through. And then I thought to myself, you know, this is a concern at first. But then I dug in a little bit deeper, and then I worked out that, you know, the Aussie men weren't able to share very openly about what was happening. So a lot of the things that we're trying to encompass and address with Tradies Insight is being able to give them an opportunity to be themselves, and say that it's okay to talk about hard things, you know, amongst the tradies. So the reason why I came up with that with that name, Tradies Societies, because I felt like a lot of these young fellows aren't being seen. And so Tradies Inside is about, I want them to have a voice. I want them to be seen. I want everybody to feel confident within themselves that they can carry themselves in a space where they're accepted, where they are validated and affirmed. So about eight years ago, I decided to hang up my nail bag to go off and study counselling, because I could see that there was all these issues that needed to be addressed, but I started looking around and I didn't find any help and support towards our men out here in the country. So I decided to go off and study counselling, because I needed that resources to really back me up and help me navigate the issue together with the men out this way. So, and I went and did that. And by the end of that year, I started Tradies Inside. So it's been 6 years, and being a Tongan, there's always food around everything that I do. So I cook in the ground, I do pig on a spit, and that really gives them an opportunity to turn up there without any agenda, just to be there and then have a feed. And I discovered that was the most vulnerable way for blokes to actually open up. And and that's what we decided to do. We use food at all events that we do. We either run a barbecue, or we would cook in the ground. Now we're just about to finish a food van. And so with that, we want to take it to the work sites. So I think in all the conversation that we're having right now is trying to work out what the best way is to actually engage men. And I really think that Aussie men love their food, they love their pies, they love their the sausage and sausage sandwiches and all of that. And I think that is a really safe way to bring forth a message that's been avoided and suppressed for a long period of time. So I think it's time for us to really dig deeper into the issue. And I think with the counselling skills that I have has really helped me to go deeper into the issue at the very core. So whatever that may be, the shame and guilt that we feel, which actually prevents us from talking openly about what's happening. So just being able to give them that confidence to say, look, we can talk about things. We even go out to TAFE. There's a program that we've designed to take the TAFE in order to actually open up the conversation and get young fellas talking about it now. So all of those kind of methods and strategies that we need to be able to promote within that space to get guys talking and go deeper into the issues and get the right kind of support and help that they need. So
great. That's great. Thanks, Bruno. Noticing the connections between the three different projects now, it's great to have three voices. And when you first sort of hear Bruno talking about Tradies, and we've got Brad talking about construction, you kind of think, oh, it's the same thing, isn't it? But actually, they're all very different. I see Bruno as almost like a connecting point between Tim and Brad. Brad very much embedded in construction sites and the workplace. Tim very much embedded in the community. You can literally see the Mongrels men out there with their flags flying if you're down on a beach or wherever they are. And what's really struck me about getting to know Bruno is how you're not just a service focused towards a particular group of blokes, which is Tradies, but you're also you're known in the community, from the rugby club through the shed that you've got, through the food van you're developing. You're a person that people know, the blokes know they can turn to, I think. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I've lived in this town for nearly 30 years, and I have a lot of connection to the community, different community groups. So I think it's really helped me to cement my position here in this town, but also the neighbouring towns as well, because we do go out and do a lot of work with all the other smaller towns. But you know, the fact that we've been here, that I've been here a long time, really has enabled me to reach out to the community and be known about the work that we do. So, you know, different workplaces would ring me at different times to go over there and do a toolbox chat, you know, or even a chat within their staff meeting, you know, even an EAP program that we've developed to go and, you know, whatever it is that's needed out there, we need to have it accessible at this level. That, you know, we spoke before about being organic and less formal, less clinical, safe, and it's openly accessible to every bloke. Because all the the clinical services that we have around us, they have been here for a long, long time. And what I'm passionate about is being able to say, look, they still have their place, but let's instill another service down here on the ground where we can initiate the conversation where men are feeling like, oh, yeah, that is what I need to do. It's okay to go and get that help. Because at the moment, they've been all around us, but we haven't been able to access them. And that is the layer of I guess issue that we've had to work through. And so that's why the food vans coming into the equation, going out to taste, going out to workplaces, it's being able to catch them. We do have a drop-in shed as well. So we want that ongoing support to be a sustainable thing for them. So you don't just turn up at a work site and give a talk and then you disappear. So we want to have that as a consistent method of blokes confiding in it when things are hard. So if we can train them, if we can give them all the skills, then we know that they can go back into their little community groups and they can be that kind of starting person to that person that they can actually confide in, and they can go and support all of their mates. And so that's what I'd like to see happen. I'd like every group to take that on board and multiply that support.
Great. And so coming back to all three of you now, I jotted down a phrase and I can't remember who said it, and I thought it's all right when we're talking it'll be obvious who said it, but it could have been any one of you. One of you said to me about building a network of carers, and it sounds to me like in different ways you're having to build community and networks where it's not just about you working one-to-one with the individual man, but you're sending him back into his life better equipped to get support because you're helping to build a network of support and carers around him. Is that? I'll come to. I think you said it, Brad, but I'm not sure. Is that part of what? Is that part of what we're up to?
Yeah, I generally do say that. So it is about, you know, because of the program itself, we try and get a 1 in 20 ratio of connectors within a work site. We overachieve on that. And then, of course, you got the assist trained people. So, you know, I think I've got one of the banners behind me says that 1 in, you know, you got 6 times more likely to die by suicide than a workplace accident. That's actually incorrect. That's wrong now. It's actually 8 times more likely. So that tells you that they're spending more money around safety within the industry, and, you know, suicide prevention sat stagnant. So we often say we do spread that network of carers. So we try and make that happen. And we say we're not just a workplace program. Actually, we're a community program, because what they learn, they take back, like Bruno was saying, to their loved ones, family and friends, their community. And we refer people through our case management system to the likes of Bruno's organisations or Tim's organisations. I don't know if we have referred people to Mongrels Men yet, but certainly to, you know, like Men's Walk and Talk and Men's Table and all that sort of stuff. So it is more about spreading, having that network of carers that are then, you know, looking out for each other. You know, we often forget about health when we're talking about health and safety, and about mental health. And if you're eight times more likely to die by suicide than a workplace accident, you know, we have all these physical first aiders on site. Why can't they be suicide first aiders that, you know, trained up in assist, you know, applied suicide intervention skills training? So it's a simple thing, you know, really.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Brad. And does that how much does that relate to the way you work as well, Tim? That sort of network of carers and building connections.
Yeah, we're very much non-clinical, preventative focused, and of course supported by volunteers, our community champions. And as much as we can train them, we obviously still need to think about a holistic approach to mental health and wellbeing, and working with clinical practitioners and specialists and professionals. You know, ideally, I suppose similar to what Brad was saying, I would love to have a practitioner in every one of our groups to help triage, provide support, whether it's structured or non-structured. But interestingly, if I think about and where we started the conversation, Glenn, around promotion, about 60% of the men that come to us are referrals from women. 20% find their way to us themselves, and the other 20% are referred to us from practitioners who have said to me, there's only so much I can achieve in a 50-minute block within 4 walls every week or every fortnight. And so, you know, I need to be able to access support networks for men outside of those 4 walls. And, you know, for Brad and Bruno, it might be in the workplace. For us, it's outside the workplace and back in the community. So, you know, kind of holistically, we're all kind of trying to find pieces of the puzzle to help provide support. But that network of practitioners, yeah, absolutely, something that we'd love to be able to work with and have embedded into what we do, even at a community level. Great,
thanks, Tim. Yeah, and that really sort of fits in really well with the whole sort of doing it tough philosophy. So the idea of doing it tough was, as a website, we didn't want it to be another suicide prevention or mental health website which purely focused on, if you've got mental health issues, you need to talk about your mental health. We wanted to recognise that there were all these other issues that can impact mental health, which can be a great way of engaging with men, because men may not show up always and say, I need to talk to someone about my mental health, but they will show up and say, look, I need to talk about work or finances or the issues with my relationship and so on and so forth. So that's going to be a really important connecting point. So we talk about addiction and relationship issues and work issues and money issues. How are you guys? And I know, having spoken to some of you, those are often the entry point for conversations with men, and often you're responding to their mental health by helping them deal with those problems. I think you, Bruno, were talking to us about financial planning, financial counselling with at TAFE. Tell us a bit about those conversations.
Yeah, so like exactly what you just shared there, Glenn. So important that we can look at all, you know, the other facets of life. What is it that is that? What kind of issues that are pressing into the issues at hand? So we decided that we would bring a financial counsellor with us, actually a gambling counsellor as well, and a representative from the bank that we work with. So, and these guys will come together and then they do up a budget, just a simple budget, example for these young fellas, just really get them to get their heads around, okay, this is how we manage our finances. Because as you know, these kids will never been taught how to do that. And then they would go out on a weekend and then blow $500 to $600 gambling or drinking or all of that, you know. And then when you're talking to them, they're always struggling because they haven't got any money left over. So then that opportunity to be able to go to TAFE with those guys, it's actually giving them the skills on the side to really help them and have them in the position that they can actually focus well on their TAFE education. Because if those things aren't going well, their attendance actually dropped at TAFE, you know, I've been told. And so a lot of guys would leave even before their TAFE apprenticeship is completed, because all of these other factors are pressing in. You know, their girlfriend's left, you know, the dog's died, all of those other issues, deep issues that happen around them, that they don't have the skills to actually help them manage kind of life, then they just don't know. They just leave. They can't deal with it. And what we want to do is to be able to build that resilience within them, so that they know at the beginning it's going to be hard, but it's going to be okay. There are a lot of good support out there, a lot of good resources out there they can tap into. So by us showing our faces there at TAFE can really consolidate that message to them. And now, you know, when I'm going there to deliver the program, it'll be after 2 weeks, and I get text messages from them to say that was great chat the other day. I would like to come to the shed and have a chat further about the issue that I have. So that's been very ongoing in the last couple of years. But the fact that we're here providing that ongoing support has been the thing that actually gives me a lot of peace and comfort, because I know that they are going to work, make some changes, and then they want to grow in areas that they haven't grown in.
Great. Thanks, Bruno. So I'd love to lean into that more, but we've got about 5 minutes left. I was going to come to all of you and just ask you to tell me a bit about how what are the issues that men often present with, and give some examples of that. But tight on time now, so I want to shift us to the final question. And in our model, we're thinking now about sort of how we structure services, and these male-friendly projects will often be based around activities that attract men, like a pig on a spit or a game of soccer. That are often, not always, run by men for men. They build on men's strengths, and they often give men opportunities to sort of do it themselves and give them the support to find their own way through their problems. The way I want to get us all thinking about how we structure services and how that might hinder or help men to access support is to ask you through this final question, and we've got about a minute or two for each of you, and it's, how do you think what you do is different from a mainstream service like a bloke going to a GP or going to a psych? I'll start with you, Brad.
So I think our case management system, where our case managers will say to them, we've got all these options available. So it might be Bruno's organisation, it might be Tim's, Mongrels Men, it might be, it might be you go to a men's shed, but you may have to go to your GP, and you might want to go to your GP and get a mental health, plan and all that sort of stuff. However, how would you like to approach it? Where would you like to take it? How would you like to deal with it? I think that's the key. The key is that they're offering the options to them, then they're following them up and ensuring that they're being connected. And how did that work? You weren't connected, that didn't work out for you. All right, let's look at another way about how we approach it the next time. So we don't archive them. We're actually keep following up and ensuring that they're getting the support. So I think our case management system is a key to why, which sets us apart, I think, in lots of ways. Yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Brad. And Tim, yeah, how are you different from mainstream services that removes some of the barriers and makes it easier for blokes to access support?
Yeah, I mentioned before that we're trying to tackle not just the kind of mental health and wellbeing challenge and reduce suicide, but also tackle the kind of social isolation and lack of social connection challenges for a lot of people, but specifically men in this case. And that in that, and we talked about culture before, we are open, we start with hugs, the warm and friendly, the warm and fuzzies, but probably more importantly than that, as one of our core pillars, like movement is key because of the connection between physical activity and mental health and wellbeing. It has to be part of whatever we do in any way, shape or form. I don't care whether it's throwing a frisbee or running a marathon, because we have to be able to cater for a range of different capabilities. And we have inherently built up a support network of, Brad talks about mates, of friends that are there inherently to support one another within the group. They don't just come and do their activity, they're checking in on one another. When somebody hasn't been around for a while, a lot of new friendships have been born out of this. People have found jobs, places to work, new family connections. And so it is, from a community point of view, trying to tie all of that together. Does it make us unique? There are a lot of groups that kind of do what we do in different ways. I think for us, it's just about making it as simple and as accessible as possible and being there when men need us.
Great, thanks, Tim. And that physical activity piece is really interesting. I mean, one of the most exciting things in men's health in the past few years has been this absolute explosion of grassroots men's groups, and a big bulk of those have been men's walks and talks. I know you guys do a bit of a walk and talk group, but they're all over the country. There's one in Penrith where at the height of the summer they get like 400 blokes. It's extraordinary. And yet a few years ago, if any kind of health promotion organisation was setting up a walking group, it was usually around getting physically healthy after a heart attack or because you were overweight. And the vast majority of these walking groups were populated by women, not men. But when it became about the walk and the talk, the activity, men have really embraced that in huge volumes. So and then really it's not about getting fit. That just happens to be a side benefit. It's actually about accessing support, building connection, building that network of support, mates, friends, carers. We've just got time to come back to you, Bruno, finally, before we move to the next stage. So yeah, what is it that you're doing that's different from mainstream services that makes it easy for blokes to access you, do you think?
I think being compassionate towards our humanity, I think it's in the very heart of what we do. Mm-hmm. And it's meeting our lads where they're at. And that's been a key factor for us in readjusting our models to be able to understand where somebody's at and have that empathy to be on that journey whenever they're ready to take the next step.
Great. Thanks, Bruno. Thanks to Brad, Tim and Bruno for all they've shared and for the amazing work you're doing and for the difference you're making in so many men's lives in your communities and in your groups and services and workplaces. It's really inspiring. It's days like this and conversations like these which remind me why I'm so passionate about being part of the men's health sector. I hope you guys can all stick around and not be beaten by technology, because we're going to come back to you for a bit of a Q&A in about 15 minutes. But now, oh joy, we are going to embrace new technology once more as we encourage you to participate and share your experiences. And the way we're going to do this is by virtue of some magical tool, I believe is called Slido, smartphone at the QR code. And follow that on your smart device. I'm just going to do it myself to make sure that it actually works. I'm a bit of a Luddite, so if I can do it, most of you can too. Yes, that's taking me to a slide. And here we're going to go through a series of 3 questions, and we want you to share your experiences, and we'll gather as much information. I think the plan is also to get this information and put it into a resource that we can actually share out there. So this is about you sharing your best practice, what's worked for you, as well as some of the challenges that you've faced as well. And we're going to do that by way of asking 3 questions. And the first one is a real nice softball question. We're assuming that all of you have got some experience of working with men that's gone really well. That you've found really easy. You've done something. You've gone, yeah, that worked well. So the question is, what have you found that really works for you when engaging with men? What are the things that you're already doing, or you've seen colleagues or your service do, or you're seeing in other projects in your community? What are you seeing that really works well when engaging with men? Whoa, look how quickly stuff's coming through. That's fantastic. Yeah. I can hardly keep up with that. Yeah, building rapport, non-judgmental approaches, engaging the wise first, someone says, which sort of speaks to what Tim was saying about 60% of their guys being referred by a woman in their lives. You can also engage partners, boyfriends, mums, aunties. Casual informal approach is coming up quite a lot, as well as about face-to-face connection being important. And that peer support piece about men knowing that they're not the only ones who've experienced this. Yeah, having approachable staff. You can offer practical support. Humour. We didn't talk a lot about humour today. It's something that often comes up and I'm sure if I asked the three guys about it, they would have been able to share examples of that. But yeah, it's a common thing that comes up, that lightening things with some well-chosen bits of humour can really help with a lot of men. Non-clinical language. We've talked about male-friendly language. In a lot of ways, we're actually talking just about user-friendly language or culturally appropriate language, but language that's culturally appropriate to men or different groups of men, be that rural men, indigenous men, culturally and linguistically diverse men, men working in construction. Keep it simple and listen. Yeah, listening, really important. Actually, we talk a lot about how men don't talk, but actually maybe we can focus more on how well we listen, being real and authentic, kindness, lived experience. A lot of focus on lived experience, which is good to see. I'm going to try this one. I love sport, but I'm still not great at Aussie sport. But I'm going to try this. Start off with something of interest, e.g., the Eels won last night. Did you see Sivo score? Have I got that right?
Sivo.
Sivo. There you go. See, it has to be real and authentic. See how I did it? Not real and authentic. Yeah. I would be more like, oh, I see your lot smashers in the ashes again. See, that would be real and authentic for me. So you've got to find your language and what's real and authentic to you, and then keep the conversation going. Find champions amongst your sort of your community. And making ourselves available so people will connect. I mean, what's Bruno doing in his community is really making himself available through the shed, through the TAFE, through his various networks. Okay, seems to have slowed down there, but there's lots of great answers. So we'll move on to the next question. So that's some of the stuff that really works. So now thinking more of the challenges. So you'll all have spoken about barriers before, and often we think about the barriers that are within men, men being stoic, men not reaching out or engaging, and that might be relevant, but I really encourage you to think about the barriers over here with us and within our organization, barriers that we have more ability to impact and affect. So what are the barriers that you found that you or your organization face when you're trying to engage with men? What hurdles do you come up against? What are the sticking points when you start? Bit of a harder question, that, but that's a big one that comes up a lot of the time in the literature on men's health. 9 to 5 hours, don't know his work. I mean, that's why initiatives like Mates in Construction going into workplaces can work really well, but also having an after-hour surgery one night a week or a weekend surgery has been shown to be really effective with men a lot, as they're less likely to be around in their community 9 to 5. Just reaching male audiences is difficult for some people. We forget in this conversation, these guys have gone where men are, but a lot of us are sitting in services where men aren't. And so thinking about how you reach male audiences, that can be really tough. Piece there about men from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. That's particularly challenging for one participant. It's usually women from those communities in events and groups. Embarrassment. Yeah, business hours coming up again. Funding. Yeah, not actually having the resources to put a focus on men. Not enough men in the workforce for men to talk to. It's a really interesting one, that. Yeah, it's not that men have to have another man to talk to, but if most of the workers are female, there's something about the culture there which can make it a barrier to men or make it more female friendly. So thinking about ways that you can bring more men into the workplace, even potentially as volunteers, to signal that this is male friendly. And to be clear, that doesn't mean to say that women can't deliver male-friendly service. They certainly can. The sector is so fragmented and everyone is wanting a piece of funding. Yeah, I mean, that's a challenge for lots of us face. We're all fighting over the same few dollars. A bad experience can cause men to be cautious. That's a really important one. We talked a little bit with Tim there about that first point of contact. and there's plenty of research to show that that first point of contact can actually put men off all services for a long time. So thinking about what is that first point of engagement and how can you really make that work, like no door's the wrong door approach. Yeah, some stuff around men's identity, around protection provider. Many men's groups are Caucasian and suburban based, so yeah, for those not suburban or Caucasian, that can be a barrier. And yeah, something there about what not knowing what works. There's a limited number of independently evaluated men's programs, so yeah, knowing actually what works. Yeah, and the tendency for there to be a sort of gender blind or gender biased approach rather than an approach which seeks to be gender inclusive. Something we certainly advocate for the Men's Health Forum. It's not about focusing on men and not women. It's actually taking into account people's gendered experience and how that impacts how they access services. Great, really useful. There's loads there. I didn't know if we would get quite so much engagement on that question, but you had loads to say. So final question then. We've talked about what you've known that you think worked really well for you. We've talked about some of the barriers. Final question for everyone: what would you love to do differently in the future? It could be something that you've thought of today. It could be something that you've always really wanted to do. And this is obviously, I'm not saying, but the question isn't what would you like to do differently in the future. I'd like to travel the world. We'd love to hear your dreams and aspirations, but we're talking specifically about, in terms of engaging with men, what would you like to do differently in the future? What have you seen other projects and groups do? Are there particular initiatives you'd love to bring into your service or community? Is it something that one of the speakers has said today that's made you think, yeah, I'd like to do that, or I'm going to tweak this or change that? We love the food as focus idea. Thanks, Bruno. Yeah. Similarly, Tim is the king of free coffees in terms of mongrel men. So if you can't afford a pig on a spit, you can always offer a free coffee as well. More access to social groups and activities outside of cities. Yeah. Once again, that sort of rural remote challenge coming up. Someone says they'd like to hear success stories from men when service and programs have worked from them. Yeah, here's men's voices and let's find out from them what's working. Again, that lived experience voice is really important. Thinking more about male-friendly language, more focus on boys. Yeah, great. Scope evidence-based men's suicide prevention programs, which also can reduce family and domestic violence. That's a great task to take on. And more focus on connection rather than risk, like that. Someone says, I'd like to offer them a safe, non-judgmental place to talk and vent. Great. And focusing on boys from a strengths-based perspective. Someone says they want to take their program national, employ more male workers. The hardest thing is matching wages for those to come over. That's one of the barriers. Yeah, wanting to encourage people into early intervention programs, but the pay not being great. Work on making our approach more action orientated. Again, taking the Mongrels men example, be more conscious of language choices and tap into the strengths of masculine qualities. Great. Well, we'll hold you to account on all of these. Of course, we'll be getting one of Brad's caseworkers to check in and make sure you've all put these into action in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And that's maybe just a final thought. It's these are things we could do in the future. But what's the one small step? You don't have to post this, but this is just to plant a seed, because we can get excited about change and things we want to do, and then we go away and we think about it, and it's all too big and all too much. So I think it's useful sometimes to think about what's the one small step I could take today or tomorrow or this week. How can I turn this conversation today into action tomorrow? Maybe it's something as simple as just finding out more about some of the groups on the Doing It Tough website and seeing which ones are in your local community. I would have liked to have spoken more about the importance of creating connections between mainstream health services and community groups in both ways. Tim was saying about how they get referrals to Mongrels men from practitioners. Bruno was talking about bringing in financial advisors. You know, I think there's a great more opportunity for two-way referring, community groups referring to GPs and mental health practitioners, but also mental health practitioners and GPs socially prescribing and referring people to people like Mongrels Men, in the way that Brad was saying. They refer guys to Men's Walk and Men's Table and organisations like that. I'm going to take that final one. Oh, it's disappeared. It was something about giving men's mental health a voice. It seemed like a nice one to finish on. But let's say this: have one place where we can all have up-to-date contacts and organisations in the state, regional and rural areas. Well, it's not comprehensive yet, but certainly Mates in Construction. I'm sorry, reading another piece there. The Doing It Tough website certainly is doing a good job of doing a lot of that in New South Wales, and we'd love the opportunity to do it in other states and territories too. So we come. Thank you. There's over 50 or 60 people present, and from the speed of the way comments coming through, it felt like there were 200 people commenting there. So we'll somehow gather all that information up and share it back with you and others who are interested in today's event in some form of resource. So thanks for your contributions. So we're heading now at great speed towards 12:30 when we're going to wrap up the workshop. So now I would like the opportunity. Let's give you the opportunity to ask any questions you have of these three great blokes who've given up their time today to be with us and share their experiences. Hopefully we've gathered a few of those already. I'm sure I've got a few questions in my back pocket, but if you can pop those in the chat, and Jonathan and George, if you want to jump in as well, because I'm missing particular questions, then please let me know. I'm just going to build on that question I think I was talking about a moment ago, because I think it really sort of speaks to doing it tough. Just a quick question first. How do and we don't have to come to all of you for every question, but just one of you having anything to say about this? How can we build better connections between more community-based services and mainstream services? What do we need to do in both directions? Just jump in, any of you.
I think the better connecting, with our case management system, we try and connect people, but also, a lot of these community organisations are underfunded.
Yeah.
We're completely underfunded. Mates are completely underfunded. I mean, we really, we've got a big infrastructure program going on, all the infrastructure leading back from Western Sydney Airport. 16 to 20,000 workers, that joint venture come and approached us, and they said, we've got you written in our contract that we're going to engage with you and reach what we call Mates accreditation. And I said, well, how are you going to achieve that? I said, that consumes the whole Mates program. So we know that, I know Bruno's doing it tough for resources out there, and I'm sure Tim is as well, right? Mm-hmm. So, when are they going to get serious about funding mental health programs and the ones that really work, right? I know that Tim's works and Bruno's works, and we've got the evidence there to say that it works. But don't get me started on this one. You're very controversial, Glenn, asking this question, because it is about funding at the end of the day, and sometimes you hear about organisations getting a lot of money just to produce a leaflet, where we've got boots on the ground. The whole three organisations here, we're boots on the ground doing a lot of work, So that's what I get upset about that, but that can be controversial.
Yeah, it can be, and you'll get no pushback from me for advocating for better funding for men's mental health programs, and those community-based programs that have been, every single one has been built from the grassroots up, and it's thanks to people giving hours and hours of time. And that, it's not unique to men's mental health. There's many other communities that are doing the same thing. We all deserve and need more. But our job is to get together and shout for more. who needs to raise our voices. George has got a hand up. George?
Yes, I've got a great question from Ivan and another one from Marianne, but Ivan's kind of is a follow-up to Brad's, but Tim or Bruno, feel free to jump in. He's asked how, as counsellors, can we get referrals from these men's groups? So as someone like Ivan who may be a counsellor, what's the best way to make sure that there's an integrated pathway of communication between you guys?
Yeah. And maybe Ivan, just tap into the chat there where you're actually located as well, so we can get a better sense of the community you're working with. But yeah, who wants to take that one? I mean, Tim or Bruno, because Brad's just had a go. Any thoughts on that?
If I can have a crack at that. I mean, we obviously have a website which details all of our locations, our timings, the activities, and create the expectations so men know what they're up for when they go. We're pretty active on socials. However, you know, our goal is to have a community champion in every postcode, so that we have someone running events and activities for men. So we need volunteers to get there. If people are aware of volunteers, send them through. That's exactly what we're looking for. But in terms of the connectivity, look, it starts with information, education and awareness. People need to know where to find us. Part of that's a funding challenge. Part of it's an awareness and transparency challenge. Because it's very, very hard to find the local resources within your local networks without the support of others. And if I can just provide one example, because I think there's a couple of Lifeline representatives on today's webinar. It was an issue that was raised with Lifeline not so long ago as a beacon, a well-known beacon within the mental health industry, that they can take and play a role in bringing groups together. And they did that on the Northern Beaches. And they've been able to connect a whole series of men's groups that are grassroots by putting on a breakfast, getting people in a room, talking about what services are available. And from there came a whole range of interconnected network-based relationships. But we still didn't get the practitioners that we probably wanted and needed. They're probably busy, as you would expect, but somehow bringing those two things together. I felt like it was at least a step in the right direction, but somehow we need to bring the collective associations together as well.
Yeah, so it's a joint effort, right? It's building. Somehow it's building a system or a culture where the networks exist, where it becomes almost second nature that we're able to refer and connect to each other because we know each other. But we all know that's difficult to take the time to do that networking and connecting because we're also busy doing the work that we do. But yeah, part of it, Ivan, if the networks don't exist, is getting out there and being in those groups and meeting people and genuinely being part of them and genuinely being interested in meeting them and not just seeing it as a marketing opportunity. There's a balance to strike, I think, because I think people can sniff it when you're just looking to market. Or I get these emails all the time where, as an organisation, for our organisation, where people are contacting us wanting to access men, and really it's all about how can you get me work, basically. And you sniff it a mile off when it's like that, and it puts me off. If you're only interested in me is how can I get you work, then I'm less likely to help and support. But if you come to me with a genuine interest to get to know what I do, get to know our members, get to know groups in your area, then I'll talk to you for hours and hours. If you're genuine about building connections and not just seeking, quick referrals to make money, then it will happen, but it takes time. Bruno, you've been nodding a lot. I just wondered what you wanted to add to this conversation.
I want to second what Brad said before about funding, and Brad sort of hit the nail there. And we're very limited in our capacity to do the work that we do. And one of the things that I guess that we've amplified in this talk is that these are the methods that work on the ground. And we want the government to recognise how important and how valuable these organisations are on the ground in terms of connecting men to the right kind of services and the right help that they need. So we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't working, and if it wasn't engaging the people that we needed to engage in the first place. So one of the I guess the barriers for us in WA here is the lack of funding, and I understand we've been around for 6 years, and we feel like we've got a lot of runs on board in terms of the work that we've been able to pump out there and connection that we've made. We are very well connected to all the other organisations in Dubbo, which is really, really great. And then we refer to each other accordingly. But the thing is that some of the programs are very well funded, and some aren't funded. And so, for example, for us, we've had to find other means to actually support the work that we do. So we're not government funded at all, and so we're not recognised in that way. But I hope that, you know, after this kind of this chat, we're actually saying something that is actually working within you know the support for men, to know that if we're trying to make an inroads into make some changes within the support of men, this model actually works. And men would need this kind of conversational level to be able to find out what actually the problem is, and in order for them to gain clinical support. So without all of these organisations and programs on the ground, these men may never actually touch on the programs that the clinical support that are available out there. Great,
thanks Bruno, thanks all. Time for one more, maybe a couple. Got one from Marianne very early on in the conversation. Broadly, really just asking about how well you guys are doing at engaging with diverse populations of men. She particularly mentions Aboriginal Torres Strait Islanders, LGBTIQA+, and culturally and linguistically diverse, but we could also expand that to other diverse groups of men with disabilities and neurodiverse men. How well do you think you're doing, and you know, what's the best approach for those groups? Do you think it is about making your groups more inclusive, or do they need sort of specific men's groups, male groups?
Well, I might start. So the construction industry is a melting pot of ethnicity within the country. So we've got, you know, trades stick to certain trades, might be one particular cultural group, right? So as Bruno would know, so you've got a lot of Kiwis, a lot of Maoris, a lot of Pacific Islanders involved in doing scaffolding, you know, but not necessarily should you generalise and say they're one, but it's amazing, you know, a lot of Koreans might do tiling, right? So one of our biggest challenges is about then interpreting the program, or where, you know, the training, interpreting that into language. And we've had we've been lucky enough to have some people fund, you know, so we've got in Arabic, we've got some of the training in Arabic, but we're nowhere near where we should be. So how do we get over that hurdle? Well, what we do is we pick someone within the group who is fairly confident in being able to translate, and we will take our time talking to them, and then they'll translate it back to the group. And normally they're a leader within the group, and we do it that way. But it is certainly a challenge for us, but we have no problem coming across them in the industry. They're there. It is just the language barrier about how we translate the program. But I think, you know, and then of course cultural issues around suicide and mental health can be, but I think we break down the stigma. We break down the stigma in the training with that. But yeah, it's an interesting challenge.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to wrap, I'm afraid. We should do a whole webinar on that. And just a quick thought from me. The challenge to us is not just how do we make services culturally appropriate for men, it's how do we make services culturally appropriate for men in all their diversity. And that's a really interesting challenge for us to ongoingly wrestle with. JB, you've got your hand up. Is it a quickie? Because we've got 2 minutes to go. Or is it for another webinar?
Maybe just a last comment or question about how can boys and teens be included and supported early around that connection. Any thoughts on that? But probably out of time.
If you can do it in one word, then we can. So what your one word or one sentence answer on engaging boys and teens. I'm going to challenge you to do it in one sentence. Go on, Bruno.
So with our drop-in shed, we have an opportunity for mums to drop off their kids, the teens, whoever, and I feel like that's accessible every single day. We open 5 days, but we give them an opportunity to just drop them off here. We can talk. Even the kids that are playing up at school, I've had to actually engage with some of those kids that have been dropped off here. So I feel like that space that we have here really enables them to be able to drop their kids off.
Great, well done, Bruno. Good attempt. And you also spoke to me about working with young fathers for them to help the next generation at the end of the day. Anyone else want to take that? Tim, go on. See if you can do one word or one sentence.
Sport.
Hey, one word, Brad.
Yeah, I was going to say sport. You took it off me, Tim. But yeah, get them to talk as well.
Sport.
I mean, that's the difficulty, but get them to speak.
Brilliant. You've been fantastic. We've hit 12:30, so I'm going to do the goodbyes. Thank you first for our three wonderful speakers. Virtual claps, please, for Bruno from Tradies Insight, for Tim from Mongrels Men, and from Brad from Mates. Thank you to you for your time and for your participation. Without you, we'd just be a small bunch of blokes having a conversation in an empty room. Thank you for everything you've brought. We will be developing a resource from your impact today. I want to make sure we thank New South Wales Health for their ongoing support for the Doing It Tough project. Without them, this conversation wouldn't have happened. And it goes without saying, for more information about services across New South Wales that are supporting men, please head to the wonderful Doing It Tough website, which is a collaboration between Suicide Prevention Australia and the Australian Men's Health Forum. I now declare this webinar closed. Thank you all. I've really enjoyed it.